What's up, everybody? Welcome to yet another Ask Tim. I do want to point out, if you guys are watching this and you haven't already signed up on our YouTube notification list, look in the video description. There's a link to a form on our website that will get you updates anytime we go live. I have emails set to send out 30 minutes before any of the streams. So we all know how terrible YouTube notifications are. So this is my workaround. And we literally only use that email list to send out information on YouTube live streams mostly. And occasionally if there's a cool video or stuff, I will also send out emails about new videos that we post if I feel they're worthy enough to send an email out. Like I posted one about the little light bulbs I've been working on, these little guys here. So these are in production. If anybody's wondering, please don't ask me about an ETA because yay, silicon shortage. But for you guys that are into Home Assistant and stuff, it's very bright, as you can tell. We will be having another smart home product in the works. I have been using our easy plugs a lot around my house. I know we got a lot of people that use them not only for Octoprint, but also for home automation stuff. So if you guys are looking for stuff that doesn't require any, app on your phone that phones home to servers in, China or whatever, that's what we're doing here, is fully open source firmware, no complicated flashing. Same thing we did with our easy plugs. Also, if you guys do have your easy plugs, I did release 2 firmware updates for them. I've been on a firmware roll. If you guys haven't noticed. So we're going to go over that really quick. I see people asking about Enzo because I know I see John's friends with me on Facebook, and I was going to talk about that. So sometimes things are too good to be true, and it sucks. But he is here. Where is he? Is he under my desk? Enzo, where are you? Oh, he's over there. So we do have a lady that's going to be taking Enzo to work with him because the lady we got him from neglected to mention that this dog has severe separation anxiety. And even though I don't go many places very often, if I'm gone for basically more than 2 hours, if he's in the crate, or if he's just, in a room in the house, he will, what's the proper word? He'll poop. He'll work himself up so much he'll poop. It's not a potty training issue. I've been working with him for a little over a month now to try to, break this and make it better. But I don't know what happened to him before we got him. It's one of the things that sucks about getting, a used dog. So, and it's a lot. It's a lot to handle. And I basically have been having to put my life on hold and having to work around this dog, so I don't have to spend 2 hours giving a dog a bath. And I'm not going to show a picture because it's disgusting, but it's really bad. It was one thing if it was just, whining and it was, pacing, but it's a lot. Like, imagine poop combined with a tornado. That's what I've been dealing with for a month now, and it's not getting better. I've tried the CBD supplements for the dogs. There's hemp ones and all these over-the-counter ones. Even tried giving them, a couple Benadryl to try to calm them down. I know a lot of people do that if dogs have like anxiety when they're traveling or fireworks or storms. But yeah, the lady failed to disclose that, yeah, he's a lot. And I have time for a dog, but not this dog because I can't do anything. An example was I went to my friend's office in the area for about 3 hours. Put him in the crate for that, took him out, watched him use the bathroom. He peed, he pooped. I thought, good, I'm gonna tell my buddy, like, hey, I don't want to push him too much, so I want to keep it around like, 3-4 hours tops. And I came home, pulled my car in the garage, and his crate was in the garage with him in it. And I have a heated garage. For everybody's like, oh my God, you're keeping him in a cold garage. No, I have a heated garage. This is my garage here. And there was just poop everywhere. Like, I'm like on the crate, it's like a metal bar crate, so it's smushing all the bars and the latches all over the tray. And then somehow, like feet away from the crate, there was just, it was everywhere. So, and I've been dealing with this for about a month. It's stressing me out. It's just not, it's not very a good situation. Like right now, if I'm working in my office, he's fine. It's, I can literally walk out, walk out the door, just go in the house, or just be working in the basement, and like he'll literally lose his shit, like no pun intended. So, but the good news is I do have a lady that is used to dealing with these type of issues, specifically German Shepherds, and we're just waiting on his final test for the deworming, because when we got him, he had some puppy worms, so I had to keep like Remo away from his stool and stuff and clean it up. I'm pretty sure it's gone, but she just wants to be safe, so yeah, we're just waiting on that. But yeah, it sucks. I'm not gonna lie, I cried a bit because, oh no. Try not to get emotional here, because he is a good dog, but it sucks to admit that I don't have the time to deal with something like that right now. Yeah. So if you guys don't see him on the next stream, I don't know when the lady's gonna be grabbing him. But yeah, so if Enzo's not around, it sucks, but he is going to a good home. You know, I was like, I'm not going to bring him to a pound or, you know, like a shelter type thing. If we can find a person to give him to that's willing to work with him. And unlike the lady who I got him from, who conveniently left this out, because if she told me, oh yeah, he's got separation anxiety to the point where he defecates in the crate, I would be like, I can't deal with that. Like, that's way too much. So yeah, she's it's her and her husband. They got a bunch of teenagers that are at home, and so basically somebody's home all the time to work with him and just play with him, and keep him occupied. And they also have another German Shepherd that they got. I don't know what issues he had, but she took in another Shepherd, so she's familiar with the breed. And I was very, very upfront with, these are his issues. So it sucks, but I can't literally do nothing. Like, I have to be stuck at home. And the thing is, I can't even leave my girlfriend with him because he freaks out even when she's here. Which I've also noticed a pattern, because I got the couple, there's two ladies I got Enzo from, and I'm wondering if one of them did something to her because he strongly favors men. This is pure speculation. I don't know if they abused him or anything, but he really likes men. He's very friendly towards people in general, but he really likes men. It could just be how he is. But yeah, so like Krista's not able to work with him because he just doesn't listen, and like he's still super anxious, even though she's been around, she's played with him, gives him treats, and I have her feed him. He's fine in the crate overnight, so I don't think it's a medical problem. He can be in the crate 8+ hours overnight, and he sleeps the whole night. I wake up, I take them both outside, and he's fine. So it sucks, but I like I said, my one thing is I'm willing to literally deal with his shit, quite literally, for a little bit longer if I can, find a home to go to that's willing to work with him, because I don't want to put him in a shelter and make his separation anxiety even worse. So anyways, yeah, I was going to talk about this anyways, but John brought up, so I do have a slight rant, and just also, like, I'm gonna beat my chest a little bit here, if that's the right word, and kind of brag. But like, I joke and I dunk on BigTreeTech's products quite a bit, mainly because I've personally had bad experiences with them getting boards that are just dead on arrival and then taking weeks to get a replacement when I've ordered them from their AliExpress store. And I've just resorted to, if I buy their boards, I buy them through Amazon, because at least I can send it back. But so I showed this on the other stream. I gave my thoughts on this, that it's a pretty looking board. I'm not a fan of their MOSFET choices, but I got this so I could test some firmware on it. But I literally went and downloaded their stock firmware to see what settings they had, so I can kind of get a baseline of, what their config is. If you go and download our firmware, you can look at our EasyBoard config, and if you even download Marlin, we've put the effort in to make sure that Marlin, works with the EasyBoards, because we worked with Scott Latine over there to make sure that there's working firmware. So both the Marlin configs for this board and their official firmware on their own GitHub does not compile. It doesn't work. Now, I released firmware for this, and I was able to get firmware working on this board, but if you bought this BigTreeTech SKR E3 V3, or SKR E3 Mini V3, it's just a mouthful, it doesn't work. So as a customer, if you don't understand the code and understand what the errors it's throwing, which I even had to do some research myself to determine what the cause of the issue was. This one in particular, were the address IDs for the drivers. It doesn't work. So why is it so hard to, like, I get they're these are cheap Chinese boards. That's what they are. You get what you pay for. But like, at least like MKS, like, they're probably one of my favorite budget board brands, because overall they give you boards that work. They may not have the latest cutting edge features, but their stuff works. But like, as far as I know, this board physically works. I have not put in a printer, but I did basic testing. The outputs work, fans work, motors work. So if I'm pretty confident if I put this in a printer, it would actually work. But the thing is, you got people that are being told to buy these boards from YouTubers, and these YouTubers are making money off of selling these products, just so you guys are. Like, we use affiliate links for like Amazon and other stuff, and I disclose that. But like, when places like Teaching Tech or Tom's 3D or Joel Telling, when they put those links, they're usually affiliate links, so they're getting paid to sell you on this product. But these don't even work. So if you got people watching these channels that are typically newer to 3D printing, they're not going to be able to figure out why the firmware they got for this board does not actually compile. It's a little ridiculous. I have my bar set pretty low for expectation of BigTreeTech products, and I feel like I need to set it even lower and just assume that none of the stuff is really going to work. Yeah, so it's just really disappointing. And the same thing with, there were issues, I can't remember, I should have written them down, but I did put together a DIY beta firmware release because I do not have their SKR2 board. I don't plan on buying it for myself. I did order one. I'm sending out to our guy Peter, who's on the support team. I said, hey, does anybody want to play with this? I don't have time to play with this universal board because it's not our product. We're not going to sell it. But if you guys want to, one of you guys want, I'll buy you one and send it to you. But the condition is within a week of getting it, you need to put it in there, put our firmware on there, and start helping polish it up. Because the reality is, and it's kind of an awkward position I put in. I like putting out firmware for printers and boards, but I think it's a little ridiculous that I literally have BigTreeTech's customers leaving comments on our Facebook page, messaging us, contacting our support, asking for us to support a product that we don't sell or manufacture. We have our own control board we put out. We support that product very well. Our product costs more because we have to pay support people. We have higher costs. My costs on our boards are over what the retail on this is. But I don't get why people are badgering us to support another company's product that's technically a competitor of ours, instead of going to that company and demanding that they properly support their own product. It doesn't make any sense. Now, that being said, I do have firmware out for the SKR2 because I saw that one getting released, because in hopes maybe I'll be able to recoup my time spent on it by people buying accessories from us, like the Easy ABL or Easy Neos or parts, to recoup that time. But it takes hours and hours, and any time spent on BigTreeTech's products, putting out firmware for them, is literally taking away from my products and the stuff that my company does. And I just don't understand why people in this space who buy these boards contact us to support a product that we don't even sell. It's a little weird. I don't know why they don't contact BigTreeTech and be like, hey, can you guys fix your firmware? Can you guys put out better firmware? Can you guys put out something that's easier to use? And I've offered to have BigTreeTech work with me and pay me to do firmware for their boards, so it's easier, but I end up just doing it anyways because I'm tired of getting badgered by people. And I think it's I just want to say, I think it's a little ridiculous that anybody even leaves comments on our stuff being upset that why don't you guys support this? It's ridiculous. You guys support all these other boards, but you guys also support this. It's not my damn product. And to make matters worse, when I do have, I found one guy so far, and I'm gonna give him a shout out. I think Spasmatic, he's probably watching. He understands that and was just you know, him and I have been talking offline, you know, and he's a cool guy. And, you know, he actually tested the firmware, because the other thing was, if I don't have the board, I can write most of the code and get it like 99% of the way there, if not 100%. But then people will be like, oh, I'll help you test, and then they ghost me. So, you know, we have people that want my time, they want my expertise, they want my touches that I do and the way I do our firmware. But one, they don't want to pay me for my time. And two, even if I want to give them some of my time, I can't even get the time of day from these people that are like, oh yeah, I'll help you test it. I'm not going to keep badgering people to test firmware for a product that's not even ours, and they aren't even customers. You know, I do the firmware stuff because I genuinely enjoy it. But it's kind of a slap to the face when, you know, people are asking, and then I'm like, okay, I'll put something together. You need to test this and get back to me. And then they don't, you know? So it's like, if you're not willing to put your time in, why should I put any more of my time in? And again, why you BigTreeTech users that are asking us for firmware, go badger BigTreeTech to support their products. If you want a product that's supported, buy our board. Buy our Easy board. Our Easy board comes with full technical support, and it's built a lot better. Yes, it's more expensive. The only complaint people have about our control boards is the price. The reason our price is higher is because, one, we operate in the US. I pay people in the US to do technical support, and I don't have access to $1 to $3 an hour labor like they do in China. So the cost is higher. You're getting a better quality product with our boards, and you're getting a better supported product with our boards. So, and that's just a fact. You know, you get what you pay for, and I'm just honestly shocked that they can't even do something as simple as having a basic firmware build that compiles directly from their GitHub. You know, and all their documentation stuff is on their GitHub. It's not easy to find unless you know GitHub. You know, or know that it's on there. I just know that they put all their stuff on GitHub. There was nothing in my box when I got this board saying, hey, go to our GitHub. It's just, here's the board, figure it out. So, end rant. But yeah, I'll keep doing, I keep doing some of the BigTreeTech firmware, but I think going forward, what I think I'm going to do is, we will do it. I'll have like our source code and stuff on our GitHub. But in terms of the download, I don't know if people will be willing to pay like, you know, $5 to get access to our firmware builds for those boards. So at least I can try to recoup the time, the cost of my time on those firmwares, if that makes sense. And maybe the people that be doing that, if there is, you know, if there are bugs or things that need to be worked out, they'd be more inclined to actually get back to us and be like, hey, I found this bug in the code. This is what it's doing. Can you fix it? Because I can't even get that from people that are like, oh yeah, if you put one together, I'll test it. You know, it's frustrating, you know? Yeah. So I think that's all the rant I have for today. But if you have an SKR2 for some godforsaken reason, we do have firmware out for it. Go ahead and test it. It should be mostly working. I don't have the board here. It passed compiles, and apparently that board also comes with 2 different processors. They're just swapping them out. So I also accounted for that in the firmware builds. So there's that. I don't think I'm leaving anything out from that. I just wanted to mention this because like I said, I'm just still shocked that the stock example configs from Marlin don't compile for this board, and the stock firmware from the company itself doesn't compile. If you go, you know, I'll actually here, let me do this right now, just so you guys don't know that I'm not bullshitting or just talking out of my ass, because I can already hear the BigTreeTech fanboys seething. Because God forbid we say anything but positivity about them. So let me see. And I do have some extra time today, so this will be a longer stream. This will go past the hour. So let's see here. So I'm gonna go to their GitHub here. So it's just github.com/BigTreeTech. So like here, so the SKR E3 Mini. We got firmware here. And then we got the V3.0, and we got Marlin here. So if we look, there's actually no source code. This is the first thing. I forgot about this. There's no source code. There's just 2-month-old pre-compiled binaries. Do they have the actual, I think is it up higher? Where is this? Where's their code? Hang on. Why am I blanking out here? Oh yeah, here we go. Pre-tested Marlin firmware configuration examples for these 3D printers with stock is available in an upstream repository here. So they're literally relying on Marlin. So I'm going to go here and we're going to go ahead and download the Marlin configuration. So we got 2093 is the latest release. So they're telling us go ahead and use this. I'm sorry, but a normal user isn't going to understand how to navigate this. So that's strike one. But whatever, we'll play the game. So I'm going to go ahead and you're going to also need to download the Marlin release itself. So I'm going to go ahead and download the source code for Marlin. And then I'm going to go ahead and open this, and I'm just going to extract this. Where did that open up? Oh, it's not done opening. Okay, so now how many of you guys that are watching this would know to do what I'm doing right now? Like just by going, oh, it's on the upstream repository here. I'm genuinely curious. So here's what I'm going to extract. I'm going to extract all these files. I have a temporary folder. E3 Mini V3 Live Demo. Or we'll just extract it there. So not only do you have to download Marlin, okay, but you then now have to get your config file from the configuration. So Marlin has these in a separate repository. So if I just download this, it's just a basic config file. So I have to go in here. I have to go to examples. I have to go to... I know there's one for Creality here. I think we'll just do Ender 3. It's very popular. So here we go. We got all the examples here. And we got, here we go, SKR Mini E3 3.0. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just copy these in. And we're going to overwrite the existing files. And that should be a working build. If everything was done correctly, this should be a working build. So I'm going to go ahead and open up VS Code. And I'm going to go ahead and open that folder. Paste this in. And we'll go ahead and select that folder. So now, strike one. If we look here, the platform IO INI is not going to be, this is not going to compile for this. Now, if you use Marlin Auto Build, it probably would be fine. But if you just do what I did, which is download the files and copy the configs over, then it's not going to compile. So if I go ahead and try to compile right now, it should throw an error saying, there we go. So then it tells you Mega 2560 is incompatible with board BTT SKR Mini. Use one of these. So I know that this is an environment name for that board. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And we're going to overwrite that. Okay, so we're going to tell it to compile for that environment. So if everything's done correctly, this should just compile. And I should have a working base firmware for this board with an Ender 3. You can see here, SKR E3 Mini V3. And VS Code's downloading stuff, and it's going to go ahead and then try to compile once it gets all the tool chains and stuff. So you can see here it's unpacking. If I get a little laggy, it's because VS Code will use all 16 of the threads on my 16 threads on my process. So if it gets a little slow, that's why. I don't know why it's taking this long to unpack this. Maybe VS Code's doing something stupid. But yeah, it's just a base config. And if you scroll through here, you'll have like your thermistors defined. It's just basically should be a config for a stock Ender 3. Nothing special. So yeah, let's see. Xbed. Wait. Yeah, so it's Ender 3. So let's see. Because I downloaded this and tried to just check that the stock config compiled, and it errored out with a bunch of errors about addresses. So we're going to see if it does again. It should be the same code that I downloaded a couple weeks ago, because it's still 2093. Oh, there we go. So we got one error. Now, it could just be a platform IO thing. So I'm just going to tell it to compile again. And yeah, it's just not working. So at this point, if you got this far, that's it. You're dead in the water. The issue that I found was the address for the X, Y, Z, and E, and I believe it's like 0, 2, 1, and 3 or something like that. So I'm just going to put, it really doesn't matter, I'm just doing this. But no one's going to know to do this. If you're a newbie, Like, usually it's the new people that are buying these boards because they watch a teaching tech video that sold them on it. They're not going to know to do all this stuff. Let's see. I know the addresses were an issue. So, like, there we go. So I think this will compile now. But yeah, like this file, if we look in here, in the config zip, there's an ADV file. This is not set up correctly, but this is what BigTreeTech is telling you to use. So how many of you guys would have known to go and figure that out? Because I believe I looked up and I found some random GitHub thread saying, oh yeah, here's the driver addresses for this board. You have to put these in. But the thing is, your stock firmware that you're telling a customer to go use should compile out of the box. Like, and it just, what this shows me is just a lack of them actually giving a shit about their customers, because if they did, they would do what we did. Is right now, if you download Marlin 2093 for the EasyBoard V2, it actually will not compile, because when Scott merged the code in, he merged the wrong code in. But I've already issued pull requests against the Marlin repository, so if you download bug fix now, the EasyBoard V2 will compile for regular vanilla Marlin. But the firmware we've put out has always worked for our products. Because I actually test it and make sure it works. But, you know, you can't expect a customer to do this much work to just get a working firmware. Just have it in a zip file where they can extract it and compile it. That's it. But apparently that's too much work for BigTreeTech. So, and it's funny because they're a much bigger company than we are. TH3D, I don't know if you guys know, is literally me. I have 2 people that work full-time in my shop out here. I have 3 remote support guys, and I have Griffin, who is a contractor for us, and he handles our PCB assembly and our electrical engineering, and then my mom, Karen, actually handles our HR and accounting stuff. We're a very small company. There's no reason that they can't do this, or can't make sure that basic stuff, such as give your customers working firmware, it is something that should be done just from the get-go, you know. And that's not me being biased. I think everybody could agree with that if you're going to sell a product, you should provide your customers with software that works out of the box without having to have them hunt around and try to figure out what's going on. Because the reality is, you know, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I tell people a lot when they complain about BigTreeTech stuff and like asking us to fix something with it. I go, oh, why don't you contact BigTreeTech support? I say that damn well knowing that they're not going to get any help from BigTreeTech, just to illustrate the point of the fact that they don't support their stuff. So anyways, like, come on guys, charge like $10 extra for your boards and put that towards, you know, proper staffing. But anyways, there we go. Look at that. It's been a solid rant. What have we been going on? How long have I been going on for? What a good. We're 39 minutes into the stream. That's okay. We're gonna go till about 5:30. How's that sound? So anyways, you know, so I say this, one, to make you guys aware of these issues, and 2, to illustrate that, like, you do get what you pay for, and we do stand behind our stuff. And if the only complaint people have about our product is the price, then I'm okay with that. I'm not trying to race to the bottom. I would rather us be known for making higher quality, more expensive products instead of making lower quality crap that the company doesn't stand behind. So, and on that note, I'm going to plug my maw because I haven't in a while. If you guys are like me and love caffeine, give it a shot. It's way better than G Fuel in my opinion because it's not gritty. And we do have a discount code called Easy Energy that takes 10% off. So literally I drink this stuff almost every single day and I love it. So anyways, look at Nemo there doing the exclamation point maw. It's really good stuff. I found it, and Tor, I know you're watching. Tor, our support guy, is the one who found it. And I'm glad he did because he told me about it and I'm hooked. So they don't pay very good commissions, but I'll plug their stuff because I quite literally drink my own Kool-Aid, so to speak. But anyways, let's get into the questions. So the bot's working. If anybody has a fix for the Streamlabs bot, I literally have to like start the stream like 10 minutes early or something, because I have to reconnect the Streamlabs bot every single time I start the stream. Like, I have to generate a new token and everything, so it's a little more setup time, but I think it's worth dealing with just because it allows me to aggregate the questions. So if you guys didn't know already, I'm just saying this because I know people don't pay attention for some reason, even though I have it here. If you want me to answer your question, we try to get through all the questions. We usually do, but you got to post it in the chat and just imagine you're typing your question out, but before you send it, put an exclamation point Q in front of it, just like it says right here, and then it'll go into my file that I have on my computer. So we are starting with Kali05. He said, I'm using a BL Touch and a blue light doesn't stay on when probing. Is that normal? The red is okay. So I don't use BL Touches, and I actually looked this up while I was, in the queue for the stream. What's it called? So as far as I remember, the red light is the only one that should be on, but that was on older versions. If somebody in chat can confirm, as far as I know, the red light only comes on when it's probing. So when the pin actually goes up into the sensor and sends the triggered signal is when the red light comes on. I think the blue light, someone correct me if I'm wrong, isn't the blue light some sort of it's like an error code one? I don't use BL Touches. I use our own Easy ABL here. So I think I have literally, I don't. I had one printer with a BL Touch on it and I sold it. And I just have literally one BL Touch sitting there. It's on a test machine, but that machine also has the Easy ABL. I literally have an Ender 3 that its entire life's purpose here is to have boards swapped in and out on it to test things. So I have it so I can plug in a BL Touch, I can plug in an Easy ABL, whatever. So, another good point with the BigTreeTech boards, I see so many reviews on Amazon where people are like, I'm on my third board. Our Easy board's $130. And that qualifies it for free shipping as well if you're in the US. As soon as you bought 2 BigTreeTech boards, you would have been better off once you factor in your time to just buy our board and be done with it. So I don't know about you guys, but I do value my time, and having to swap boards out is not something I want to be doing every, so many months. Like, I'm still running the first ever Easy board that was produced in my Ender 3 Pro, and that was over 2 years ago at this point. And it still works like the day I put it in. So anyways, let's see. So Landit 13 says, my printer Ender 3 Pro, the Z-axis goes up over the same spot when I use a BL Touch using SKR E3V3, but not when I use my old silent board. So my question would be, is it doing it on every single spot or just some spots? And I haven't tested the ripple and stuff on these boards, but BigTreeTech's boards have known to have issues with the 5-volt rails being unstable. I would assume they corrected this. This is like their 4th or 5th board version from this series. I would hope to God they have it correct at this point. But if it's not working at all, it could be a wiring problem. It'd be really easy to determine if that's the case just by checking your wiring. I don't know which pin they tell you to wire the BL Touch onto. I'm just looking at their headers here. I would assume it's like any other board, which would be the Z stop for the white and black wires. And then I know they have, is it probe or servo? We call our BL Touch header the servo. Night mode is not good for me seeing things. I believe the 5-pin header, is that for serial? No, this one's for serial. Power detect? Oh no, TFT. I believe it's this 5-pin one right here. But I'd have to look at their manual. But you probably need to specify the pin. And actually I can check really quick. Let me check my the code here, because I believe our code, I don't know if you're using, I mean, if you're not using our firmware, then good luck. But the E3 one should be auto set up to whatever their stock config is. So I'm just looking at that here. Hang on. I'm literally pulling up the files right now and seeing what the default pin was for the BL Touch for this particular board. Where is it? PA1 is what is noted in here. I'm going to look at the pins file. Well, actually, I can just look at here. So PA1, yeah, so PA1 is on that 5-pin header. So if you don't define any pin for the BL Touch on the E3 Mini, I need to like move my stuff around. You should have the control pin on that one. So hang on. I'm like trying to multitask here, and I'm not very good at it. So this is the config file for the SKR E3 v3 for our firmware. So you can see I have by default PA1. But if I go into the configs here, so I go firmware, Marlin, source, pins, G0, and then this, we should see servo pin here, so it's already defined here. So the pin that controls the BL Touch should be connected to the center pin of that 5-pin header, and then they do have PC4 or PC14 on that header as well for the probe. Now, I'm just thinking here, if we have BL Touch defined, is that going to be looking for the end stop signal on the 5-pin header or still the Z stop? Because a lot of times before these 5-pin headers showed up, they would use the Z stop for two of the 5 wires coming from the BL Touch. And now we have dedicated headers. So I'm just looking through my settings here to just check. So looking at how the code is set up, because I'm using BigTreeTech's, this is the pins file from Marlin for this board. It looks like it's going to be expecting that Z end stop signal on the Z end stop header. So that means this code has to get changed to tell it to use the PC14. So if we look on the actual back of the board here, I'll just switch cameras so you can see. So I do like that they do this. They put the pin numbers on here because, hey, you know, it's convenient, but also their documentation sucks, so at least it's on the silk screen. But you see PC14 right here, and then PA1. So that's your control signal. You got your ground power, and then a ground. So basically these two pins, this ground and the PC14, the stock Marlin setup, and which is what our firmware follows, is going to be expecting that on the Z-stop header. So those two pins are going to be expected on here. Now, you can tell the firmware that you want to have it use this pin here instead of the Z-stop. So we see here PC2 is Z-stop. So I could put a setting in here, or just modify the code. I'm trying to remember what the verbiage was. I believe it's the Z probe. No, it's going to be in this config file. Is it Z probe? It's the end stop settings. So here, so if we look in here, Z probe uses Z-min end stop pin. You should be able to just comment this out, and I believe then that will tell it to use this instead of this, because you got your Z probe pin. I mean, let's try it right now. I'll use my little fancy test tools here to do a quick build, because I'm curious, because then I can always add an option in the firmware later. But like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I do comb through all this little stuff, and if someone brings something up, then I do look for it. But this isn't even my product. You're not using my bed leveling sensor. You're not using my board, but you're using my firmware, which is great. But it's just ironic that, you know, people come to us for help with their BL Touch. We don't sell them. And their BigTreeTech board, we also don't sell them, you know, because neither of those companies actually support their own products. And I guess, yeah, maybe I should have like a little BigTreeTech donation button, like, hey, if our stuff helped you out, because they won't, then buy me a beer or something. But here, let's see it. Let's see if this hypothesis is correct. I believe just commenting that out would rectify the issue. Let's see here. And the other question is, how did you have it hooked up on your 422 board? Because the 422 boards, I believe I do have a setting in the 422 boards to use either the 5-pin or the 3-pin, if I'm correct. And I can double check that. There's only so much stuff my brain can remember. My memory's bad as it is. But I'm just curious, because I believe I have an option to set it to either the 5-pin header or the Z end stop. I think I have a value, so I can just kind of replicate what I did there. So here, so if you're using the 5-pin header for all the BL Touch connections, uncomment the below line. So let's see what I had this do. This probably, yeah, here. So you can see here, if this is defined on the 42X board for the configs here, it's going to go ahead and use the Z probe for homing, and it's not going to define Z probe uses the Z main end stop pin. So I can literally just kind of replicate this same thing I did here and just kind of roll this into whatever the next update would be. So let's go ahead and test that right now. So if I go ahead, we'll just do a quick config here. I'm going to do the custom probe. And then we'll just leave it at the default. So this is just testing settings, so it doesn't matter if it's a valid offset. So I don't have to define this, but let's go here. We'll just call this I'm just going to call this BL touch on 5-pin. How's that? We'll just make it universal. And then we're going to go down, look for the Z probe line, and we're going to do the same thing. Where's my end stop settings? Right here. So we're going to do the same kind of thing here that we had in that 422 config. So let me just find that again so I don't have to rewrite all of the code. And we're going to go ahead and just pop this in here, and we're going to test to see if it compiles. So I'll just move this around, put that in there. And you can see here, since this is not enabled, we're using the standard one. So Z probe uses Z min end stop pin. You can tell it's not enabled because see how this is faded out. Now, if I do this, we should now see that this is lit up. So it should then use that other pin on the 5-pin for the actual BL touch signal wire. So, or you could just move those two wires over, but you can just enable this line, add this in. So if you want to use the firmware that's already out, you can add this into your configuration H and then find this line and just delete it. And that should take care of it. So I don't know if my buddy Gabe is using a BL touch on his V3, but again, need someone to test it because I'm not going to take time to put this in a board and hook all this up, or put this in a printer and hook all this up. So if you want to test it, I'll push these changes up to our GitHub. I'm wondering if I should just rename this feature in general, just like BL touch on 5-pin, just so it's consistent across all the board configs. Am I making sense here? What do you guys think about that? So have the same option regardless if it's a Creality board or it's a BigTreeTech board. Because I kind of do that. So basically, no matter what board you're using, you kind of have the same setup experience across all of our firmware. So I can easily fix that by just going, let's go and replace that, and we're going to hit replace all. And then we're going to save those changes. Look at this, I'm doing firmware mods right on stream. So there we go. So they'll all have the same kind of thing. I don't know if I have that on the E3, the other versions here. Do I have that on the other version? E3 Mini. Do I have a 5-pin option on this one? This is for their other ones, because I think those have, maybe not all of them, but I think some of them have the 5-pin header. These are the older ones. Doesn't look like I have anything on there. I don't know if they have... I'm gonna look them up. This is what happens. You guys put an idea in my head, and I'm just like a dog with a bone. Let's see. SKR E3 Mini V1. I have this board here. I just can't remember if they have a 5-pin header on them. No, see, so here, look it. So they've got, see, it says servos here. I don't know if you guys can see this. But the V1, they had a header here, so it's split like with our easy board. We have the 3, so you got your ground, your power, and your signal, and then the other 2 connect to the Z stuff. So they didn't have that on the V1s. They might have put it on the V1.2. No, they didn't do it on the V1.2. So that's the version 1. That's the version 2. Is that a new addition to the V3? Let's find out. Let's pull up a version on the V3, or it's V2, I mean. Okay, so that's why I don't have it. The V2 has the Z probe port, but the V1.0 and the V1.2 do not. Yeah, so they do not. So they have this option for the V2, and if I look at the firmware pins files. So, and these are not pins files I generated. These are from Marlin. So whatever Marlin has, either they put those in, or BigTreeTech submitted it up to them to be merged in. Why am I over here? A3 mini common. So let's see. So servo PA1 is a servo pin. And then, yeah, so they do have a Z probe pin. So, and this would be for the V2 only. Where's that Z probe pin? Do they have a Z probe pin on the V1 and 1.0s or 1.2s and 1.0s? Yeah, they do. Okay, look, I just realized this. They're right next to each other. It's not a single header. They're right next to each other. So that's kind of confusing for the config, because if I call it BL touch on 5 pins, then that means we're on the servos and the probe for the 1 and the 1.2s. But I mean, I guess people can figure it out. I don't know. Yeah, so I'll just add something like that into the other one just because cohesiveness. I'm gonna just make myself a little note here, and I will do that later because we just spent way too much time on this. All right, I wrote myself a little note. So anyways, let's get back to this. So the answer for that, it sounds like you need to connect the other two, or just wait for this update, or if you go back and pause the video and see what I did, just make the changes to the firmware that you have on your printer. So all right, back on topic here. Let's go ahead and pull my questions file back up. But yeah, that would be why yours is not going up, because they have that separate header on there. Derek is asking, is it okay to use those linear voltage regulators that's used in RC stuff to power Raspberry Pi? As long as it meets the power demands, yes, it doesn't matter. You know, if you got a 5-volt 3-amp output, it's a 5-volt 3-amp output, regardless of what the intended use was. You know what I mean? Nemo, did I ever give lockpicking a try? I have the stuff. It's still sitting there. I've been too busy. So no. James asks, can you briefly explain what a volcano hot is? I see the words all the time, but I have no idea what they mean. A volcano hot is literally just, E3D came up with the design. It's just a longer heater block. So the idea is you have a longer melting zone, so you can get higher flow rates out of the nozzle because it's got more time to get molten. That's all it is. So it's a high flow. I've got a couple of volcano setups here. They're a lot of fun. Especially you pop a 50-watt heater in there and one of our easy flow copper nozzles, you can push some serious filament. Like I call Big Bertha here. It started its life as an Alphawise U10. It's basically a custom printer at this point, but I've got a 0.8 easy flow volcano in there with the high flow volcano block that we sell and our V6 style hot end, and I can make an entire roll of plastic disappear in about 8 hours on that printer. It's a lot of fun. And if you guys are thinking about messing around with like high layer and big nozzle prints, and you have the time to do it, I highly recommend it, because it's a whole different level of printing, and the parts you get off of them are so ridiculously strong. It's wild. So like I have that printer set up to just do big prints fast. So if I need something prototyped or I need a larger functional part, I run it off on there, and they're freaking they're freaking long. Justin Dybells asks, can you go on your Noctua rant? I think we had enough ranting for today. So no. Let's see here. I have a KP, Mirrors 51 says, I had a KP3S. I did the upgrade and added a MOSFET to the headbed. Good. That's a good one. It would seem that the hot end would draw significant current as well and potentially cause issues with the power cable. True. So here's the thing. Those barrel connectors are usually rated for around 5 to 6 amps. Some of them are higher. That's 24-volt printer. You're only pushing like maybe 3 to 4, so you're within the realm of what that connector should be seeing in terms of its max amperage. I don't think it's needed, but if you wanted to put it on there, you're talking like, under $15 for a MOSFET. It's not going to hurt. if you do it, but it will then move that load off of the board. My personal opinion is don't waste your time or money, because I think it's fine. Like, yes, those barrel plugs are not designed for high current, but I would not classify a 24 volt heater as high current. Let me see. You think I know Ohm's law by heart now, but I don't, so I use a calculator. So to give you an idea, a 24 volt 50 watt heater cartridge is pulling about 2.08 amps. So about 2 amps at 24 volts. That's perfectly fine. Add another couple amps for, add another 2 amps for the motors and the fans. You're looking at like 4. You're probably fine. So let's see. Mike V says, I upgraded my CR10S, or upgraded to 2.40 unified my easy board. The easy ABL home is fine, but when it starts printing, the Z-axis crashes into the bed only when I start a print job. That sounds like, if you've ruled out, like, it sounds like a cabling issue, to be completely honest. Like, you have something that's intermittently connected. There's not anything in the code that I'm aware of, and I'm running 2.4. What is that? So I'm trying to think of when our releases jumped a Marlin version, because that's usually where new issues crop up, is when we jump a major version with Marlin. So we were on 2.0.9.1, and we recently went to, and recently being in the last like month, I want to say, maybe 2. I'm actually pulling up our GitHub here to see when, because I do tag all our releases. When did I go to 2.0.9.1 or 2.0.9.3? So Unified 2.38. I went to Marlin 2.0.9.3. I am running an Easy ABL and my Easy board on my Ender 5 Plus, and I haven't had any issues with it. And I believe that's running 2.39, which would have those new changes. So 2.39. So if you guys are on a version older, or 2.38, if you guys are on a version older than Unified 2.38, 2.38 was one where it was a major jump in the code we're using to actually do all the behind the scenes stuff, because we went from one Marlin version to another. I thought about doing a more major number change, but I wanted to keep the unified version number with a 2 on it, because we're using Marlin 2, and the idea is once Marlin 3 comes out, whenever that is, I have no idea, we would then have Unified 3, because it would be built on Marlin 3. So that's kind of my logic. Unified 1 was built on Marlin 1. Unified 2 is built on Marlin 2. So all the versioning is our own internal version. So the 2.39, the 0.40, the 0.41, that version number we increment every time we do a new release. If it's a very minor change, like maybe it's a tiny bug fix for one particular printer with one particular board, you might see a letter after the version number. So if you guys see like a little letter, like an A, B, C, D, or whatever, that means it was a very tiny change that really only affected like one machine. So I don't want to do a full version increment. That's just my logic. I'm the one that decides all that stuff. So that's a little thought into peek into my brain. Where's chat? So, but yeah, I would look at a cabling issue. If you've had the Easy ABL on there for a while, you could also have an issue where if the wire isn't secured properly to hot end over time, you can cause strain on the wire, and then it'll break and not have a consistent connection. So then you're getting intermittent connections to the board. One thing I would do then, if you've ruled out, like I would just reseat the plug going from the control board to the Easy ABL control board, because sometimes they get partially disconnected, or maybe you've got some oxidation on the terminals. I've used deoxit on a lot of our printers. Like some of our printers are getting up there in age, like 2+ years, and we've had weird issues where like the filament sensors don't trigger all the time, or like the Easy ABL will crash, and it ends up just being a lot of cases where the plug came out, but we have issues where the connectors just stop making good connection over time, and we'll spray some deoxit in there, clean it out, and then everything's good. So just start with the basics. But as far as I know, there's no code changes that would cause it to crash, because it's either going to not work all the time or work all the time if it is a firmware issue. And I'm going to see what version I was going to get up, but I just realized I have Octoprint on my printers. Let's see what version is on my Ender 5 Plus, because I just recently updated that to test one of the releases, and I'm pretty sure it was the 2.38 or newer. I'm checking right now. Let's see. Go ahead and turn that on. That's got a little easy plug on it, so let me turn that on and see what it says. Because I am curious, because that would be the last major change if there was any weirdness. But you're the first person I've heard to report that. You know, it's kind of annoying. A lot of people are like, oh, I updated the firmware and things stopped working. And a lot of the time, it's just something else, and it just happened to be they updated the firmware. And then an issue cropped up. So I'm looking at my Ender 5 Plus, which would be using that same code base, the 2.09.3 update, and I'm on version 2.39. So that's the one right after the major code update. And there was nothing changed from 2.38 to even 2.4 that would have changed behavior of the signal for the EasyABL. So anyways, yeah, TLDR, check your connections, clean them, you know, and then to determine if you do have a break in the wire, you know, hold your finger on the sensor or put something to keep it constantly triggered and move, you know, move the cable harness and see if the red light on the EasyABL control board flickers. If it does, that means you have a break somewhere in the wire. So, and the number one cause of that is not properly securing the wire to the actual hot end. There's a reason we have pictures showing to leave a little bit of slack and where to secure it, because over time, if you have it going straight up with all their wires, it's basically bending back and forth, and it's going to create an issue where you have an internal break in the wire and the sensor is not going to work correctly. So, and that's with any sensor. So make sure when you guys are routing your cables, you're leaving a little bit of slack and making sure that you're putting it on the printer in a way that it's not going to cause strain on the cable over time. Let's see. Peter Anderson, you seem to really dislike BigTreeTech. Why do you buy their stuff? Literally, I buy these boards just to test the firmware out. That's it. That's it. I don't buy them because these literally, I have BigTreeTech boards. They're all sitting in boxes. I do not use them in actual printers here. I literally buy them to write firmware for them so I can make sure the firmware I'm putting out actually works. So the SKR2 firmware, the beta one that released, I literally labeled it beta, and I'm pretty confident that it's probably mostly working. That's literally the first firmware I put out where I have not had the board in hand to test it on, because I'm not spending my time putting it into a printer because it's a universal board. This one, if I need to actually test it in a printer, this is a quick swap out. The SKR2 is a universal board. It's not a quick swap out. So, let's see. Mark Rillo, I don't understand why there's such an issue with BigTreeTech. The Voron team raves about them. Yeah, the Voron team and BigTreeTech are very, very tight. So, yeah. Go look at the Amazon reviews. Don't take my word for it. Go look at the reviews. And what BigTreeTech does is they will lump their boards together on one product listing. So what happens is they'll have like a board that's pretty good, that doesn't have as many issues, and then the star rating you see on the Amazon listing will be like the SKR2 has 4 stars, but you click and you filter out just for that product, and the SKR2 has terrible reviews. A lot of the Chinese companies do that, and I'm sure non-Chinese companies do, but my experience has been with Chinese companies, they sell on Amazon, they put a bunch of products on one listing, so that way when you leave a review for, like, let's say the version 2 of this board was good, but the version 3 is terrible. Well, the version 2 reviews are going to outweigh the reviews on the V3, and it all gets averaged out, so you look at it and go, oh, it's got 4 stars, it can't be that bad, but then you go and drill down and look at just the reviews for that particular product instead of the overall product page, and it doesn't look so hot after that. Like I've seen Creality do that too, like Creality resells. They'll have like the Ender 3, the Ender 5, the Ender 6 all on one product page, and all those reviews get averaged out. So it's kind of, in my opinion, it's deceptive. You know, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, go look at the reviews. There's tons of issues, tons of mentions of, you know, I guess this is a dunk on BigTreeTech stream today. So let's just lean into it, because I like proving my points. Let's see here. Main monitor. There we go. So, and I'm in an incognito mode, so there's no bias towards my stuff. So like, towards what I purchased. So here, we've got all these different versions. Now, this one in particular is ones that come with the drivers. But if we go down and look here and just look at the reviews, let's see most recent. So here, firmware issue refuses. God damn it. Firmware issue, refuses to flash. If I hit see more, like it doesn't look so great. Like here, I saw this one yesterday or earlier today when we were talking about it. This is how many boards this guy's gone through. 3 version 2s, 1 version 1 of the E3 dip, 1 1.4 turbo, 1 E3 or 2 E3 turbos, and 2 SKR 2s. Yeah, he would have more money in his pocket if he just bought a Duet. Duets are really expensive, really made boards. But there are some good reviews, but you can see like here, dead on arrival, no support. Know what you're doing before you buy. I agree with this. Because basically you're on your own. Yeah. Killed driver, smoked, randomly, edit, still alive somehow. Like, yeah, multiple boards failed, won't read SD cards. This guy probably, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. This guy probably jammed his card in the wrong way. Firmware issue, built-in dual Z-axis out of sync. That's a weird one. Seems to be working, but no support whatsoever. Yeah. I don't know how this has 4 stars, to be completely honest. But on Amazon, you guys might not be familiar with this. So if you do this, you can go all formats and show only reviews for that product. So you can see just for that particular product. So great board before it dies. Yeah, unfortunately, my 4th board is malfunctioning. This is the problem I have with BigTreeTech stuff, and I will say this over and over again. They have really cool ideas. They have really cool boards that on paper look great, but they don't last, and I don't like swapping my boards out. So there's really not many reviews on this variation, but yeah, it's just I don't understand how this has 4 stars with all the negatives unless they're all recent. Yeah, it's interesting. So, but yeah, like if I'm willing to bet if they actually supported their products, they could head off a lot of those negative reviews because they'd actually be able to talk to their customers and fix issues. So, yeah, like let me say, like if that was any other product, like let's ignore that it was BigTreeTech and I was looking for a product to purchase for myself and I saw those reviews, I would not be buying it. Let's see. Let's kind of go through these the rest of these questions here. Hopefully I'm not too all over the place, but I think you guys kind of like that. But whatever. This is me. You get what you see is what you get. Ask anybody who knows me in person. I'm the same kind of way, especially when I'm talking about something that's like fun and I'm passionate about. Let's see. 3D Experiment says, I want to close one of my printers and move the board and power supply to an external box. Is there an effective limit on the length of wiring to the steppers, switches, hot-ends, fans, etc.? The short answer would be yes, there is, but unless you're going like, you know, hundreds of feet, probably not. I have some runs on I did the same thing. So my AM8 build, all of the electronics aside from the LCD are mounted to the back of the printer, and I've got some runs for the steppers that are about 3.5 feet, almost 4 feet long. Like, yeah, within reason. Just use high quality stuff. If you want to combat any voltage drop and stuff, you know, go a couple gauges up. So if you know you're going to run 22 gauge, go up to like 18, because if you've got more copper, it's less voltage drop over the run, and that's really where issues come in when you have a long run for wiring in general. You have voltage drop because that wire has resistance. So to combat that resistance, you can go up a little bit in terms of the gauge to combat that. Mark Line, is there plans for a new easy board in the future? So we've been talking around internally about kind of like our own, like an SKR2 style board, like a universal control board. But due to the silicon shortage right now, I don't want to plan it out because we could, you know, it'll take us at least 5 to 6 months to get something that I'm happy with to get into testing. And by the time that we're done with that, or we do revisions, we might not even be able to get the chips. It's kind of a crapshoot, and it's just not worth it at this time. So, like, I don't know when the Pro would be coming out, but it's very low priority just because we've got enough stuff trying to get supplies for the current boards we're selling. I am looking at some MKS stuff. MKS has been putting out some good stuff, and they've typically been the, you know, universal board we've carried because they're one of the few companies, in my opinion, that is able to make a very decent, board in China without cutting so many corners that it's just unreliable. So let's see. Buddy Gaming says, I'm having an issue getting my Ender 3 Pro to connect to my PC to flash the firmware. The board is 422. What do you recommend to do? I recommend you read the directions for the firmware because the 422 board does not flash over USB. Sounds like you're trying to flash the 8-bit firmware onto a 32-bit board. So you need to make sure you're getting the right firmware. If you're using our firmware, which I would assume you are, because you are asking it here, make sure you're downloading the right firmware. I did recently reorganize the Creality firmware downloads on our website by like the easy boards, the Creality boards, and then the SKR board, since there's the multiple versions for the drop-in board. So yeah, make sure you can't flash those 32-bit ones with the stock bootloader over USB. They're only for flashing over the SD card. So make sure you're downloading the firmware for the Ender 3 with the 42X board. That's how it's listed on our site. It's 42X. You're probably using the Melzy one. Let's see. Is there a way to compile locally and put the bin file on SD card, update the firmware? I don't have a laptop or cable long enough. I'm assuming you're flashing an 8-bit board. The short answer is not really. You're going to have to grab a laptop or something that can flash the file. There's really not a quick answer for that, so I'm going to move on to that. I recommend you check out our Discord server for additional help. But the bottom line is you should just bring your printer over to the computer temporarily and flash it. But if you have a 32-bit board, you should be using an SD card to flash. Let me see. Hybotics, if I need assistance to get firmware support from my BigTreeTech board, what would you charge for that? So we do actually have paid support. If you book one of the other guys and it's an issue they can handle, the rates start at $50 an hour. If you book me, depending on how long and if it's a weekend or not, it'd be $75 to $100 an hour. I bill more on the weekends just because that's my personal time that'd be taken away. So but yeah, so like for an example, since we have the beta, the SKR2 firmware's in beta, if somebody were to come to me like, hey, I'm looking for this feature, or these settings, or this, little add-on for your guys' firmware, can you code this for me? I would then put it into the main firmware so everybody has access to it. So, but what I'm not going to do is spend a ton of time adding, and doing a ton of polish on the firmware for the SKR2 boards, unless I'm being compensated for that, because it's not our product. I'm going to risk sounding kind of conceited, but the BigTreeTech users are lucky I put out any firmware for any of their boards. We don't have to. We support our products and the ones we sell, our easy boards, the Creality boards, and that's really all we need to do. So, I've said it before, if I could comfortably, if I could get boards from BigTreeTech that aren't, crazy, unreliable high DOA rate boards, I would sell them. But the reality is, if you get one that works, they have a very high failure rate, and a lot of times they have a very high DOA rate. Mm-hmm. What? Why? Dude, you're killing me here. Can you lay down? Apparently, we did not get enough attention. So, oh my God. Dude, please lay down. I know. Whenever I feel bad about trying to find a new home, I just remember how much shit I've cleaned up over the last 4 weeks. Yes. Do you need to go outside? Is that what you want? Do you guys need to go outside? Okay, I'm going to let them out really quick. This is the longer stream, to be fair, so I'll be right back. I'm going to go let them out before we have... I mean, I don't think they'd have an accident in the house, but I'm not risking it. I've cleaned up enough crap this week and last week and the week before. So I'll be right back. Where's my starting soon? BRB. So what's that? Come on. Go. Go. All right, we are back. So Do we have new questions? We don't. Anybody know where you can get a Raspberry Pi for less than scalper prices? If I found out, I'd be buying them for our own stuff, so I can't help you there. Yeah, silicon shortage. Yay. Vincent asking, have you used more than one printer on a single Raspberry Pi, or do you need a Raspberry Pi per printer? So the answer is I don't ever do that because of performance issues. Like, I would not recommend it. Yes, it's possible. No, I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I do not recommend it because I've tried it before TH3D was even a thing, or maybe when I was just starting, just playing with it. And it's a hack job, and I believe, and Gina, if you see this, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you do not recommend using more than one printer per Pi just because of performance problems. So Octoprint already has issues with lagging and choking sometimes with serial data bottlenecks. Adding another printer onto that is not going to help the situation. You know what I mean? So I don't recommend it. Kevin Coy again, he said, I've got two of the Easy Pis. I'm trying to use a multicam on one of my two printers. I have two simple USB cameras that work well on one Raspberry cam. I'm trying to see if I can get both of them work together. So I believe that should be possible, but I can't give you any info on that because I don't run more than one camera on any of my Pi setups. But there is an Octoprint forum, and I'm willing to bet if you check that out, somebody's probably done it and has an example, but that's not something I can help out with. I believe there's a plugin I saw that has, I believe there's a plugin I saw that actually has support for multiple cameras. I can't remember what it is, but if you look through the repository, you might be able to just search camera and see what pops up. Let's see. James is asking, anything special I need to do when switching from a standard brass nozzle to our Easy Flow nozzle? The only thing is check your prints. I noticed that when I swapped them out, the only thing I had to change was bump my print temperature down about 5 to 10 C because it was running too hot. Other than that, there's really there's really not much of any change required. So, Hybotics, your question did not actually go into my file for some reason. I'll just put it in there. So Hybotics, is it true that a Raspberry Pi 4 cannot support more than one printer? I don't recommend it. I don't care what Pi you're running. Just too many potential issues. I look at it this way. If I had like 2 or 3 printers connected to a Pi, if they're working, if that Pi starts choking, I've got 3 printers that are just printing like crap instead of just one that probably wouldn't have had an issue if I had one on there. So, Peter Anderson, I appreciate it. He's like, I never thought your boards were overly expensive. I think they're in the mid to high end range, to be completely honest, which is usually where I spend my money on products in general. You could charge double and it'd still be worth it. I don't think it would sell at double the price, but I appreciate the enthusiasm. So, let's see. John Cheplinsky says, does the teach firmware print a purge line at the start of each print from the SD card? When I send the same G-code Octoprint, no purge line. So no, our firmware does not do anything like that. Purge lines would solely be would be something that is in your slicer. Our firmware does not add anything like that because I feel like that would kind of cause more issues, and people are not going to be expecting the firmware to do purge lines and stuff. Hybotics says, EasyBoard 2 support dual independent Z-axis steppers. No, it's a 4-driver board. So we have 2 Z plugs, but it can support 2 motors off of one header, or off the board, but they're running off of 1 driver. So because the target market for that board is 4-driver printers. So things have already gotten so expensive, adding another driver would bump the cost up even more. And I'm also pretty sure we've used almost every single I/O pin on that processor. So we would have to have changed to a different processor. So Bill said he's got Easy Neos on his 5 Plus. I've got it wired to the D12 pin. When I change the Unified 2 as defined NeoPixel pin D12, I get an error compiling. So it should just be pin 12, just 12. That's just how it's referred to on the board, so you don't put the D in there. You don't want the D, man. Just the numbers. So, yeah, the only time you'll see letters in pin assignments, as far as I know, is if you're dealing with a 32-bit board. You'll see like P1 underscore 02 for like the LPCs, and then the STMs, you'll see like PA, PB, PC, that kind of stuff. So, all right. Steven says, any tips for Z issues on Ender 3 Pro? The right side is floating and is about 1 to 2 millimeter off. So there's an awesome channel. He's a good friend of mine named Jim. He runs a channel called Edge Tech, and he has a performance assembly guide for the Ender 3, and all those steps apply to the Ender 3 V2 because it's basically the same printer. They can be a little fiddly to get lined up. I've built many Ender 3s, so I can go over them and get them lined up even without a dual Z setup. But you want to go ahead and go over that and rebuild it and just get everything aligned. He goes over all of that in his Ender 3 Performance Assembly Guide. And because Creality uses the same gantries and a lot of the printer companies use the same setup, you can watch that and go over it for like your Ender 3 V2, your Ender 3, your 3 Pro, the 3S1, the CR10. Any of the printers that have the same style gantry that are single lead screw driven. If all else fails, we do have actually a dual Z kit for the Ender 3 V2 on our website. I can't remember the price, but they're anywhere between 60 to 70 bucks, and it's all mechanical, so you don't have to do any rewiring or anything. It actually has a belt system at the top that comes with another lead screw that locks everything in. So I have that on my 3 Pro. It's been great. So let's see. Any chance you're going to release firmware that includes the current features of the gyres for the EasyABL? The answer is no, not for the stock setup. We did push out a new firmware when we went to Marlin 2093 that also came along with Marlin's new, I think they call it Marlin UI. Do I have that LCD here? Because it's actually pretty cool, and I'm pretty sure that's what's still on this board from when I was testing. Hang on. Because it actually makes the Ender 3 V2 LCD usable. Huzzah! I'm pretty sure. Oh, one thing I did want to mention, I noticed, Creality fixed the USB backfeeding issue on the Ender 2 Pro board, and BigTreeTech, after 4, maybe 5 board revisions, these don't backfeed either, and the LCDs don't stay on, so they're learning. The 427s have the same problem though, but I think this should be flashed with the 3V2 firmware. I could be wrong. I could always update it really quick. I'm going to update it really quick because I want to show that off. Because, great, shout out to Scott and the team over at Marlin. They did a great job on the Marlin UI. It's the same features and experience. It looks slightly different, obviously, but the same features and experience on that you get with the 12864s on the Ender 3 V2 LCD. So I'm gonna grab my firmware real quick and just compile it and flash it onto the stock board. Well, not stock board, it's a 427, same difference. Unified 2-zip, I think this is a 512K. It is a 512K chip. Let's see. So much firmware compiling going on here. So let's see. E3V2 427 live demo. Yeah, it's I was not comfortable. I did test. So here's the thing. If you go and poke around in the source code for the firmware I'm going to flash on here, the line for gyres is in there because gyres merge their code in with Marlin. So if you want to go ahead and modify Unified 2, and I'll show you where it's at since I'm pulling the firmware up anyways, might as well. but we're not going to provide support for that because I was testing it and it was kind of janky, to be completely honest. So I have the firmware here, so I'm just going to flash until I have an Ender 3 V2 with a 427 board. And that's basically it. But if you look down in the config, and we can jump there just by searching for that, and we'll jump down to the Ender 3 V2 settings. If you look here, hidden in the code, I have it commented out. Do you see this? Do you see gyres is right here? So if you commented this line out and uncommented this, you'd get the gyres UI. This is the default. The Marlin UI is the default setting. And we do this because like the Creality enhanced one is okay, but just for cohesiveness in terms of experience across all the firmware versions, whether you're using the stock LCD on this or 12864, it's the same experience. I'm gonna show you guys because it's awesome that they were able to get this working on this LCD because it makes it a lot more usable. Like you literally have all of the features of the 12864s. Now I think when Ender 3 V2 came out, someone correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's been over a year since that printer came out. So it took the Marlin team over a year to even get it to this point. Because we swapped our screen out on our V2 to a 12864, which is where this screen came from. So I just keep it on hand for testing things. So let's see, USB. Apparently this was a flat or a SD card from a printer I bought. Go ahead and just give it a little quick format. FAT32, 4096 allocation bytes. And we're going to go here and I'm going to copy the firmware bin over. And then we should be able to flash this sucker. Let's see, ARMCam 1. Yay! ARMCam 1 is looking a little dirty. It needs to be cleaned up. So I've already flashed this LCD with the correct LCD firmware. If you download our firmware from the website, it comes with the LCD firmware. There we go. Look how much cleaner that looks. Yeah, look at that. Turn on my fill light. All right, so they should power the LCD over USB. So it's coming off powered hub. So hopefully the board should take the firmware. It's not happy. Maybe it doesn't have enough power. I've never actually tried powering this over the USB. I'm thinking maybe it doesn't have enough juice. That's okay. I've got all this crap on my desk. I'm pretty sure it's the correct cable I'm using. Let's see. Yeah, it's not flickering. I think my USB, even though it's a powered hub, apparently it doesn't have enough juice to light up the LCD unless that cable's not one that it's happy with. Why are we being a pain? Let me try a different cable. Maybe I grabbed the wrong one. I could have swore I used this cable with this screen before. Well, try it again. Saw the black backlight flash. Why you no do this? I know this board works. It might not be happy. Let me try. I think it was just too much current for the USB. Hang on, let's try this again. Of course, it no work. It's a live stream. But we're used to this. So, it's all good. Rename the file. So don't feel bad. Even Tim has issues sometimes. Just watch I like brick the board or something. Oh, there we go. Okay. I just had to redo it. So, this is what the new UI is, and this is why I'm not using gyres, because this is literally the same experience that you get on a 128/64 on this screen. Like, this is perfect. You have access to everything. You got baby stepping if you want. You've got all sorts of other settings. You can go here, go to your configuration. You can set your advanced settings. Like, it's a really, really solid job. You even got LCD brightness here. Like, you can dim it down if you want, or dim it back up. But like the gyres screen, the code's there. It's just not our default. You know, so if you're using the gyres and you start having weird issues and you contact our support, like if you're a customer, we're gonna tell you use our code, because I can't tell you how many times we've had like people say they have all these issues, and it turns out they're using heavily modified code from us, or they're using Marlin, you know, and they didn't set things up correctly. You know, where at least this we're able to control, you know, the settings, so we know it works out of the box. So if somebody deviates from that, it's pretty easy to be like, okay, you know, go back to our defaults. Does it work with defaults? Okay, so it's something you did and you're messing with code. So either use ours or, you know, jump on our Discord server and find out what you broke. But I'm just compiling this now so you can see the gyres UI does work. So I did test compile with all these options. I just really thought that this was the best option for user experience, especially if you're already used to a 128/64 screen. It's not gonna, there's no like adjustment, what's the word I'm looking for? There's no like adjustment to relearn this screen because it's the same layout, it's just color. So, but just to show you, so I commented out this, which is the default, and I'm uncommenting the gyres. You can see it compiles, because I did test compile before I push this out. That's why I left that in there. And go ahead and update the firmware. And you'll see it'll have a different UI once it updates the firmware. So there you go. And this is with the gyres UI. So I'm not a big fan of this. I don't like the dial-up sounds, but you know, if you want to modify it, you can. But if there are issues, we have not tested like stability long term with this UI. The Marlin UI worked fine. I threw this on a test printer, ran a bunch of prints. It was fine. It may be okay, but I'm just covering my ass, so to speak. But yeah, so you can do that. You just got to make sure you have the LCD firmware updated on the screen itself. So pop the little SD card in there, update the firmware, and that is included with the firmware download. So as you can see, I can switch it back and forth. Like if I want to go back to the original, they're barking at someone here. Oh, they're barking at the neighbor dog. If I want to go back to the original one, I just revert what I did, put it back into Marlin UI Portrait. Now, you could also, if you want to print a mount to put it sideways, this is also another option if you still like the Marlin UI, but you want to put it in landscape mode like on the Aquila. The Aquila uses a very similar LCD, and I am going to be playing with the VoxLab Aquila next week. Since this screen is actually doing something now in Marlin other than just being extremely limited. But I'm going to show you, it's kind of cool. So if you had like, I know there's mounts to turn that screen landscape mode instead of portrait. And I'm just recompiling it. So I left these options in there. Use it at your own risk. It literally says right here. But yeah, you can just go in. This is just in the configuration H file. So if you just search gyres in the configuration H file, it'll take you right here. So, you know, just to show you. So like if I'm editing my stuff, I'm setting my settings, I want to change the gyres, just search, you know, do a control F, JYERS, JYERS, and there you go. So, let's see here. The only other thing too, I do want to say, if you are switching to gyres, it will by default enable PID bed, which sometimes doesn't work very well. It causes the bed to heat very slowly. So if you see here, if gyres is enabled or the DWin enhance, this will not actually compile unless the PID bed is enabled. So do be aware of that. That was another deciding factor because when we had the PID regulation on the bed enabled by default, we got so many complaints from people saying that my bed takes forever to heat up. Well, it's because you got to tune your bed then for the new tune your bed with the new PID value. So here, so imagine if I mounted the screen like this. I believe it's going to come up like this. We'll find out in a sec. I can't remember if this is the orientation or if it's the other way. But this should be, there we go. So there we go. Landscape version. So that's an option too. I actually kind of like this more than the portrait one. It's got more of the same feel that the 12864 has. So, but props to the Marlin team. This is a really nice implementation to actually make this a very usable screen instead of before where it was extremely limited and your only real option was to use the gyres firmware, which I'm glad that they actually merged that code up into Marlin because, you know, like if I find bugs or stuff while I'm working on firmware for our stuff, I will report it back to the Marlin team. If I make any enhancements that I feel are worth, you know, big enough to contribute back to the Marlin code, then I will make a pull request, you know, or at the very least ping Scott, be like, hey, I did this. Is this something you think would be worthwhile adding into Marlin? And there's been a couple of features that I've contributed to there. So, but anyways, there we go. Lots of segues today, but you know what? I like it. Let's see. Artie says, my Ender 3 stopped mid-print and now only the fans from the extruder and the power supply spin. The screen doesn't light up. The main board only flickers as blue ID. Is my board dead? Sadly, yes. It probably sounds like something got fried. I am going to, just because we're at the 5:30 mark, I'm going to nix some questions that are not really that great. No offense if I don't get to it, but I want to kind of go through here. So... Kevin is asking, can the 427 board be flashed over the EasyPi / Octoprint using a USB connection? As far as I know, it cannot. You have to put the SD card in there. Now, there are firmware updater plugins. The problem is they're very hard to get working with the 32-bit boards. I have yet to get it working. It could be something I'm doing, but there's a way where basically the idea is they transfer, you leave an SD card in the printer, it transfers a firmware file over and then issues a reset command to the printer. I've never gotten it to work on any LPC boards like the MKS SGNL or Easy board or STM boards. I just suck it up and, you know, I don't know how often you guys are messing with your firmware, but I've got printers here that, you know, basically if I'm not upgrading anything that requires a firmware change and I'm not needing to test a firmware build on a printer, I don't really touch my machines, you know, or obviously if there's an issue, you know, that's a bug, I'll update, but I've got machines here that haven't been updated in years because they work. You know, it's not like your computer where you have to keep up to date on stuff. On that note, I'm going to keep reading questions. We're going a little bit over, on top of going over, but I got to let the dogs in because my yard is thawing and I don't feel like cleaning up muddy messes, and I'm hoping they're not too muddy right now. So let me go get the pooches. Go lay down. Go lay down. No, true. They are definitely garage dogs. Their feet are pretty wet. Go lay down. Crazy dogs. Anyways, okay, where were we at? I don't know how to say your name. Equanimous? I have no idea. I installed my T3 tougher extruder, haven't printed yet, and I've been oiling my PLA as it goes into the extruder. Are my partial clogging days with a genuine E3 V6 over? Any tips? In general, all metals are more prone to clogging. I typically have found it takes about a month of consistent oiling for it to get a nice season. But also going to a geared extruder I found helps because if it does start to just ever so slightly stick to the heat break, they have a lot more torque than your standard extruders and they can push through it a lot of the times to the point where you're not even going to notice that it's happening. It just, you know, kind of raw powers through it. So Yeah, all metals are nice, but I don't really recommend going to them unless you have a specific use case for them. So, because there's a lot of other options out there for higher temp printing, like our tough tube, where you just swap the tube out and you can get higher temps out of there because you're replacing the basic tubing. Let's see. Marty says, I'm trying to use Unified 2093 on Ender 3 V2, 422, okay. The x-axis will not home. It only moves about 10 millimeters to the right and never moves towards the end stop. Everything else okay, works on gyres. So here's the thing. If you're telling your printer to home and it keeps moving to the right, it thinks the end stop is triggered. So that would be a thing to check with M119 to see if the end stop is triggered. It's probably one of these things where it's just a fluke that, you know, it works on gyres, but you changed over. There's nothing in the code that's going to change that. Because you need to check with M119 to verify if the end stop is always showing triggered. It could be an electrical interference issue. It could be a plug not in. That means that it thinks it's already homed. So if you tell your printer to home, and you know, I'll even show you here. If you tell your printer to home and that axis is already homed, it's just going to keep moving that over. So I have our, I think 241 on here. Apparently I have I have my gain set really high. Why is it so blown out? Hang on. My ISO was set way too high. So anyways, so if I go here and I do motion, and I'm gonna auto home this here. I don't know. Oh, you know what? It's dust from my fan. I accidentally hit my fan here. So we're homing here. Now, if I go and hold my X, okay, and just hold this down. You see this? Versus I let it go, it'll actually home. So if you see that behavior on your printer, there's something wrong with the end stop. So again, one of those things where, oh, I update the firmware and it doesn't work. Yeah, it's just a coincidence. There's something going on. There's something going on with your machine. Enzo, lay down. He's very pushy when he gets clingy. It's kind of annoying. But yeah, so if I'll show you that again. I don't know. You know what? I posted pictures on our Discord server, and I'm just gonna tease it now. I am working on a new ABL probe for you guys that were saying our 18 millimeters are too big. This is an 8 millimeter one that I had made and is literally being tested, and this is also a capacitive type, and this is being driven off the same exact board as our Easy ABL Pros. So I don't have an ETA on when this would come out, but this is something I'm working on just because people were asking for something smaller. So here we go. Just for comparison, because we will still keep selling the 18s because these are a lot more expensive to make than the 18s because of the size. Here's a size comparison of the 18 versus the 8. The 18 can go on here, no problem, but I figured I was building this, and Chris is actually going to be using this. I was like, well, you're going to be a guinea pig, and you're going to try our new sensor. But here, I literally just ran an M48. I don't know if you guys can see that. So there's the M48 just on a Ender 2. There, my ring light is getting in the way here. It's been consistently testing anywhere between 0.003 and lower, basically. So I just told it to do another probe test. So we'll do it live. He's faking the results, guys. And this is a 15 millimeter a second probe speed, just so you know. Not 8. This is actually working with the super fast probe. So just like that, our M48's done, and it's fantastic. So yeah, if you guys are interested, let us know, because I would like to, once I get the final revision of the sensors, there's some stuff I want to change, like just coloring and switching to a shielded cable like we do. I'm on the pros. If you guys are interested in testing it, let me know. I have a couple here of this version, which obviously works well, but the final version will be just like our other Easy ABL Pros. I'm probably gonna call this the Micro. What do you guys think? The Micro? I don't know. The Chode? Anyways, it's getting later. But yeah, so let's see. Are there any other quick questions before I go ahead and do the ceremonial treats for the doggos? I'm not going to say it because they both know the name. Oh, is he laying? Oh, okay. I was like, where is he? He's usually under my desk. Justin Dybell wants to test the MKS Monster 8 I have. I won't need it for another few months. I appreciate the offer, but I will buy one myself. That is one of the ones I was looking at getting in. Because like I said, I do like MKS stuff. Mark, will your new sensor work off the Prusa board? I mean, it's universal. It will still need the Easy ABL control board because these sensors run on a 12 to 24 volt power input. So I believe the Prusas run off 5, but Prusas use an inductive probe, and it's easier for them to make a 5 volt inductive probe, but capacitive, they do perform better on the higher voltage inputs, which is why we do things the way we do, just because it works well. Any other quick questions in here? I'm just reading through the questions file. Let's see. This is a good question. So Cheney Goldstein, now the Ender 3 V2 has a Marlin UI display. Does that mean there's no need for the 12864 display? It'd be great if it's now easier to implement features easier. So as far as I can tell, all the features for the 12864 display are available on the Marlin UI. So I would say, no, it's not needed to swap the screen out anymore. If your stock screen breaks, you can swap it out. It's a lot, the 12864 is a lot cheaper than this, but as far as I can tell, you've got all the functionality now on the stock screen versus the 12864. You know, but like I said, I think it took Marlin over a year to get that out to actually make that screen more usable. You know, so if you already have it on there, like I do in my Print Farm printer, you can keep it or you can swap it. It's up to you, but let's see here. Any other quick questions? Only a couple more here. Louis Amaro says, recently on Ender 3, I've had 3 printers fail in the same spot due to the same problem every time when I check it. I see the filament broke during the print. Any idea why? It's probably a combination of just lower quality filament or maybe filament that's been left out too long so it soaks up moisture. And a combination of how the filament is going in. So if it's getting up to a certain height, maybe it's getting bent more than at a lower position. On the Ender 3, on the Ender 3s, I actually print this arm that comes out off. Like imagine this is the top of the Ender 3. There's an arm that comes out about to right here, and it kicks the filament out so it feeds in at a less extreme angle, because I was having issues with the filament not feeding smoothly and kind of getting hung up as it was going into the extruder. So that might be something to look into. Just like I think on Thingiverse, just type like Ender 3 arm or something like that. So that would be about it. I don't see any other questions that are worth answering in here, and this is a longer one. What are we at now? Like an hour and 54 minutes, 2 hours. Oh man, people on the podcast are going to be wondering why it's so long. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and give the little furry bastards, do you guys want a dingo stick? Do you guys want a dingo stick? You are very damp. Stop with the needy. Oh. Yeah? Remo, can we speak? Ooh, good boy. Enzo, just look stupid. Good boy. There you go. Primo, do not steal his. You go over there. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this longer stream. Sorry about all the the random tangents and stuff. It happens. So I will talk to you guys on the next one. We do these every 4 p.m. Central Time on Wednesdays. Again, if you guys want to make sure you get notified when we are going to go live, in the description we have a link for the YouTube sign-up notification, and that'll put you on email list for just YouTube video notifications. We don't use that for any other marketing purposes. It's its own segment in our email system. So if you guys want some awesome upgrades and you guys are BigTreeTech users and you want to actually thank us for putting out firmware to take care of their boards that they clearly don't care about, buy some stuff from our shop. I'm very joking around. It's just my sense of humor is giving people a good ribbing. So, but yeah, if you guys have an SKR2 and you want to test out the new DIY firmware I put out, go ahead and do that. And you can use the firmware channel on our Discord server if you find any bugs. If there's features you want added, we do have our paid services. So if you're like, hey, I got this idea, can you add this in? I don't know, make a fan output, do something. We can go ahead and add more stuff into that, and then we'll roll it into the whole firmware thing. But, since it's not our product, I'm not going to be allocating a ton of time when I've got a lot of other things going on. But if someone wants to hire us to do those services, we are available. So just let us know. Just go to on the contact page. So if on our website there's contact us, there's a drop down that says premium support. That's what you would do. So if you want to hire us to do some custom firmware for you, we are available. So myself and my team as well. So anyways, I really need to record an outro or get some sort of standard things. Make sure you subscribe, and ring that bell, because YouTube and algorithms. Anyways, I'm gonna get going. I'm gonna clean up my office a little bit, and I'll probably hang out, be in our Discord server later tonight for a little bit. A friend of mine was supposed to come over and give me a hand setting up my new office space downstairs, but I think he's dealing with some stuff with his dogs too. So it'll be interesting. So I'm playing juggling, creating Enzo for long enough that I can actually get stuff done, because he gets into things, because he's still, it's weird. He's 10 months old, but because he was at the breeder till he was 8 months and nobody worked with him there, he's basically like a puppy. So he messes with stuff and he chews up stuff. So I have to crate him, but I have to set a timer, because if I crate him for too long, then I'm going to deal with literally a cross between poop and a tornado. So yay. Anyways, I will talk to you guys all later. Hope you guys enjoyed the stream, and as always, happy printing.